Welcome, Wargamers, to the Islands of Perfection here in Ea, because today we are discussing the Enclaves as we continue our exploration of the Sorcerer Kings, one of the newest factions to drop for Parabellum's Conquest, the Last Argument of Kings, and also First Blood. Now, in this video, I'm going to assume that you've been following our Sorcerer Kings discussion up to this point, and this is another sub-faction alongside the Elemental Court. So all those things we've already said about the Sorcerer Kings in general is also true, but now we're looking at a more detailed lens. The Elemental Courts, as we talked about, are the more esoteric mastery of the arcane, the Magocracy that runs the society, whereas the Enclaves are about cold steel and manpower. This is the tier of society that exists to defend and serve the Sorcerer Kings that lead them. Fantastic and loyal warriors in their own right, this is more of a grounded force. However, it's important to not be deceived by their apparent lack of supernatural gifts, because the Enclaves are made of a people that are hard like granite. And we're going to be chatting about them all day today. Now, one thing I'd like to throw up top here, if you like this video and you're considering jumping into Conquest, please consider using my affiliate link down below. The code is 2PlusTough. You'll save 10% on all your purchases directly from Parabellum, and at no cost to you, it gives a tip to the channel that goes directly to supporting me, my wife, our cats, the whole thing, and it's life-changing stuff, and I appreciate you. Also, I know Goonhammer is looking to expand into more Conquest content. If you want to learn more about how to play the game, tactics, that kind of stuff, go check out Goonhammer. So when I say the Enclaves, what am I really talking about, right? Let's do some definitions here first. Well, we mentioned that the Sorcerer King's society is a caste system, based on if you are magically gifted, and it kind of drops you into one of two buckets or categories. If you have magic, you get dumped into the Elemental Courts, and they are always on top. But below them are the overwhelming number of masses that make up your population that you have to lead. Kings don't make empires, people do. And in saying that, I'm not just talking about the lowest rungs, the dregs of society. Remember that when the original four Sorcerer Kings made this paradise, they delegated their governing authority to their subordinates. But to pick up on how this branch of society evolved, you have to remember that this initial group that made its way to these islands was essentially mixed refugees from all over. Everyone was trying to escape the fall. And so as this hierarchy and the delegation of authority and bureaucracy of this empire starts to take shape, there's a blending of cultures that naturally has to happen. And this is something I truly appreciate. It's one of the things that makes this army feel different than the others. The fusion of ranks and roles. Because you'll see titles like Baron mixed with Maharaja. Now, the names of the models more lean towards the latter, but in the lore, as far as like that, there are like things that are more reminiscent of 100 Kingdoms blending with other cultures. And then what I love about that is this great mix of people that all just decided, we are going to find a way to make this work, right? Everything behind us is destruction. We have to learn how to live together, and so we will. And so all of their different ideas of governance and organization and bureaucracy and leadership and titles and land, all this stuff get fused together into a new system. So you have farmers toiling out in the field, making food for the society. Miners who eat the food to harvest resources for the Elemental Court's research. You have to have shops and towns and city meetings to be able to facilitate all of that kind of commerce. People are trying to have kids to expand the nation, create more magically gifted people for the courts. It's a whole society, and I cannot stress enough that everything in this tier of society exists. The food, the education, the healthcare, the military defense, the natural resource industries, and manufacturing, all of it exists to serve and supply the Elemental Courts. And while that could seem, we'll say, oppressive, it was always part of the deal. The idea was that after Hasley was struck down, the Sorcerer Kings would keep a couple people safe to rebuild the world, and eventually go out and conquer what was the old world for them and bring it to peace. But all of that requires stuff. You need a population that can lose people to send them out to go found a new settlement and new cities. Enough mages to spread your power far and wide without degrading the interior. And all of that stuff is mined, gathered, shipped, used by the Enclaves. So if this is a caste society and they are fixed at the bottom, I could see a lot of people getting real mad about that, except the Sorcerer Kings, on their end with the elemental courts and stuff, have really held up their end of the bargain by serving these folks. Yes, most of them have working class jobs that are not glamorous, but every city is cooled by a constant breeze. The harvests are always bountiful every year because the Sorcerer Kings can control the rain. There's no natural disasters. There's an abundance of everything that they need. Your borders are safe. You'll always have the stuff that you need to feed your family and provide. So we really kind of do get more of like a picturesque view of what the Sorcerer King society could look like back on their island. Now, this could start to change the more they expand and go outward, which they've already started to do. But the people back on the island, like the descendants of those original founders, are quite happy. And so, as you might imagine, everything boomed very quickly. The point being, yeah, it's hard work, seemingly the more physical of the two labors, but the Enclaves seem to have it pretty well off. I mean, when I say that they're at the bottom of society, they still have their own aristocracy, there's still money to be had, there's still entrepreneurship, there's still all those things. In fact, the lore on the Bellum site describes them as having a rather decadent lifestyle as of late, right? As a faction, the Sorcerer Kings themselves have remained somewhat hidden, so they're just accumulating all this stuff. Remember, they're just now leaving their island to go expand into the greater continent around them, which means they just have stockades of stuff. But slowly, the Enclave leaders, those aristocrats at the top, are beginning to lose sight of what this stuff is for. Expanding. And this kind of brings us into the tension that this sub-faction kind of postulates for us. This is a period of change within the Sorcerer King's history. They've done what they were told. They built a society, one that is rich and prosperous and happy, but again, it's in the process of changing, because that wealth exists to be dumped into a war and colonization budget by the Sorcerer Kings. So they become a little soft around the edges, right? Maybe people who aren't prepared for, say, a total war economy. And there's going to be a little tension, as I'm sure. And what I mean is, you spent your whole life basically mining resources from a tunnel, and then all those things get shipped elsewhere to go found a new settlement that has nothing to do, doesn't benefit you at all, that kind of thing. And so as the Sorcerer Kings are now expanding, those resources will start to get eaten up. There is, however, one section of the Enclaves that nobody can call soft. Okay, this is luckily the part that you and I get to use on the table. That's their military arm. Because the people at the highest military levels never lost sight of what this stuff was for, right? These are generals who are just looking at these accumulations of stuff and war material being like, yes, now is the moment. Now, most often, a faction of the Enclave will be led by a Raj, somewhere between military chieftain and local ruler. These are low-level sorcerers, typically, taken up and given the bare teachings of the elemental courts, but instead of being bonded and going into the hell dimension like others are, they went back home, because now they had skill in matters of governance. And so they act as a middleman between the common people, the Enclaves, and the Sorcerer Kings, the elemental courts. They know and understand the lives of both, but are somewhat removed from them at the same time. It gives them a very unique perspective on the state of affairs. And a Raj is basically your basic military leader that you and I get to game with. They are responsible for quite a lot, because every one of these little mini fiefdoms, or whatever you want to call it, within the Sorcerer King's island, every Raj is responsible for training and equipping their military forces so that when the Sorcerer Kings call on them for a mission, they are ready. They need to manage their personal empire, all the non-sexy side of government, right? City planning, economic reports, crop yields, blah, 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 blah. But on the other side, they also have to keep the Sorcerer Kings satisfied and off the back of their people, right? Your little Khanate needs to contribute so much food, war material, people, and so on. In fact, it is the Raj that families will bring their magically gifted children to, and the Raj will essentially reimburse them for this kid and lavish, wealth upon this family. And then the kid goes to the courts, like we talked about in the Elemental Court video. And so there are these demands and expectations that are coming at you from all sides. Luckily, your population does a lot of the heavy lifting to make up for any shortcomings. Right, are you mineral rich? Awesome. all your Raja Corps, the elite infantry, have incredible armor because you got the resources there. Do you have a lot of time on your hands because you don't see too much war? Awesome. Make archery your favorite pastime. And through these kinds of advantages, disciplines, carrots and sticks culturally, the Raj can pull units of the Enclave together into being a really powerful fighting force. Even if the wizards take the center stage, you need capable soldiers to hold whatever you take. And so I want to end this video like I end most of mine, which is simply asking, why is this cool, right? In a faction of magic wizards who pull hell-like demons from the maws of unreality, why would I want to focus on basic peasant stuff? Well, for one, the Enclaves are a fantastic view into a lot of the nature of the society within Sorcerer Kings, and I find it very interesting. The many exist to serve the few, which is normally awful, but up until now, the few have been reinvesting those rewards back into the society, building it up to a time of plenty, affluence, wealth, savings, all that kind of stuff. But we catch them in this very interesting moment of change because they're just pouring back into the main continent, trying to reestablish themselves among other factions. How stoked and relaxed are the Enclaves going to feel when all of their hard work and the excesses that they've built over multiple generations starts getting eaten up? Right? These are the basic materials going away to fund war efforts. And that's just the financial reserves. Think about the population, right? People get real mad when they start losing children left and right, and nothing of tangible value was being gifted back. It doesn't matter where they went or why. And the Sorcerer Kings are launching a campaign that's its goal, ultimately, is to take everything. It's like they have a plan to eat an elephant. And since the Enclaves are all flush with stuff now, sure, they feel hungry. But if you fast forward and see how that's going to look in a few decades, what will they think? And I love it for that reason, right? This is a great snapshot of a society on the brink of big change. Not necessarily terrible, but big change. Even as they themselves re-enter the setting, a formative event is already underway. Now, I will also just straight up personally go out there and say, I like a lot of the mage and the kind of like the Jin models and that kind of stuff of the Sorcerer Kings, but I adore their basic infantry. The Rajikar are just some of the coolest minis ever. I've always been a sucker for infantry heavy lists. I like just a lot of guys just being thrown into the meat grinder on the tabletop, that kind of thing, counter charges. And if you want to be a canny player, who of course you can bring, a wizard or something like that and a few Jin, but if you wanted to simulate what it's like for one of these local warlords to be given a mission by the court of air or fire, go out and conquer something. It's going to be conquered with the huddled masses that you, as the Raj, have equipped and trained your entire life. And there's just something cool about that. I would love to know, what is your favorite unit within the Enclave? So think of the more human things. That's basically what I'm talking about. I already said mine, the Rajikar. If I had to pick a hero, the Raj, fantastic mini. But I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. Thank you so much for following and listening. I'm going to record this and then I'm jumping immediately into the Crucible of Wills, which features the Sorcerer Kings and the City-States. And I hope that you'll join me for that. So thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming, friends.